Welcome to this video on the topic of algebra. In this video we're going to go over the fundamentals of multiplying algebraic factors together. Now before we jump into any examples, what we'll do is we'll have a quick refresher of the terminology of algebra. So what I've got here is an algebraic expression and it's 4x plus 3 minus 2x squared. Now when we have an algebraic expression, it's built up of terms. So in this case here, we've got three unique terms, 4x, 3, and minus 2x squared. Now, of which we've got two different types of terms. We've got constant terms, and then we have terms that are built up of coefficients and variables. Now, the coefficient in a term is the number that's next to a variable, and the variable is the letter in the term. Now, one thing that we didn't cover in the previous videos is when we have a power or a number above the variables. So in this case, we call this the power, or we call it the exponent. Alright, now that we've got that out of the way, let's have a look at a few examples. What we're looking at in this video is how we can multiply factors together. So starting with example 1 here, we've got something nice and simple. We've got 2 times 3 times 5. What we want to do is multiply this out. But notice we've got 3 different factors here. So when we multiply this out, we want to know which order do we multiply this in. And the answer to that is it doesn't really matter. We can go 2 times 3 and that would equal 6. And then we'd have the times 5. And then we can go 6 times 5, that's 30. Similarly, if we redid it, we could go 3 times 5, so we'll go 2, then 3 times 5 is 15, and 2 times 15 is 30. And finally, let's go one more time. We'll go 2 times 5, that will be 10, multiplied by 3, and that will be 30. So one of the first rules that we're going to look at in this is it doesn't actually matter the order in which we multiply factors together, we always get to the same result. We have minus 3 times 7 times 2. So what we're dealing with here is a negative number. Now, if we recall back, whenever we have a negative number and multiply it with a positive number, we're always going to get a negative number. So 3 times 7, that's 21. And the 3 was negative, so we put the negative in front of the 21, and then we go times 2. Then evaluating once again, we go negative 42. Example 3 now. Now we're dealing with terms or factors that have variables in them, so variables and coefficients. So example 3 here, we've got 3 times 2x minus 4x squared. What we want to do is see what happens when we multiply the factors in this expression out. So what we've got here is, what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate the first term. So we'll multiply the factors out. So when we're multiplying factors here, what we're going to do is multiply all of the coefficients together. So we're going to go 3 times 2, and then we'll put the variables at the back here. Then we're going to get the 4x squared, and we can't do anything with that. Now, 3 times 2 is 6. We have the x, and then we have minus 4x squared. So this is our final result here, because remember, we can't collect like terms if we have differing powers in the variable. Alright, cool. We have 3y times 2y plus 4 times negative 2y. So once again, what we've got are two factors, or two terms. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the coefficients of the factors together, and then we have to multiply the variables together. So what that's going to look like is we're going to grab the 3 and the 2, and we'll group those together. Then we'll go second brackets and we'll go the y, and we're going to multiply these two y's together. That's for our first term. Then the second term is 4 times minus 2. And then we're going to have brackets. We just put the y at the back. Now the 3 times 2, that's 6. And here's where things get a little bit interesting. So we've got 2 y's. So what that's going to mean is that we're going to get y squared plus negative 8y. And if we really want to clean this up, we'll go with this y upwards. So what we end up is 6y squared minus 8y. So what we actually do here is we add the powers or the exponents together. So when you have a variable with no power above it, it's implied that it's got a power of 1. Alright, now example 5. We have our first term here that's made up of 2 factors, 3z squared times 4z. And then we have a second term here that's also made up of 2 factors, minus 3x squared multiplied by 7x to the power of 5. What we're going to do is we're going to multiply the coefficients together of the 2 factors. So we're going to go 3 times 4. Then we're going to do the same with the variables. So we've got a z squared multiplied by a single z. Then we put the plus, and we're going to do the same with the second term. So minus 3 times 7 multiplied by x squared times x to the 5. Going back, remembering we have to, when multiplying, we add the powers together. So that what that is going to look like is 3 by 4 is 12. And then we've got this z, 2 plus the implied 1. Secondly, we have negative 3 times 7, that's minus 21. Then we have x, and we're going to get 2 plus 5. Simplifying this, we're going to get 12z to the power of 3 minus 21x to the power of, that's going to be 7. And thus we are done. We have minus 5x to the power of 3 multiplied by a half multiplied by 4x to the power of negative 1 plus x times negative 2x times 5. So once again we're going to simplify the terms by multiplying the factors. So we're going to multiply all the coefficients together. So we're going to get minus 5 times a half times a 4. Then we're going to get x to the 3, or x cubed, multiplied by x to the negative 1. Second one is we have 1 times minus 2 times 5. And then we have x times x, like so. Simplifying this out, negative 5 times 4 is negative 20, and then multiplied by a half, that's going to be minus 10. And then we've got x 3 plus minus 1. So notice the negative here. We're still adding it together, so we get a 3 plus minus 1. Plus, then 1 times negative 2 times 5, that's negative 10. Then we have x 1 plus 1. So the implied ones. Evaluating this, we get minus 10 x to the 2 plus negative 10x to the power of 2. And notice that we have similar. So what we can do is we double, so we're going to go negative 20x squared. So the two negative 10s are going to stack to give us negative 20, and then we have a variable x with the power squared. So that brings our final example to a close. Going back, the lessons we learned in this video were when we're multiplying factors out, it doesn't matter the order in which we multiply the factors together, we always get to the same result, as we saw in this first example here. We always got to the result of 30. Example 2, we had a look at what happens with negative numbers. So if there's a negative in the mix, then we simply turn the entire term becomes negative. Example 3, when dealing with multiple terms, we multiply the terms, or for the factors of the term, we multiply them out together, but we still keep everything as two discrete terms if they're not like terms. So this still resulted in a 6x minus a 4x squared. Fourth example, we had a look at what happens when we multiply two variables together. So we have two y's, that became y squared because there's always an implied power of 1 on a variable without a power, and you simply add powers together when you multiply terms together. We had a look at that in more detail in example 5 once again. So we add the powers together, and then example 6 we dealt with some negative powers.